Okay, in this Claude demonstration, what we're going to do is we're going to look at Claude code. It's running in Visual Source code, VS Code, and what I'm doing is I created a Claude project. What I did was I asked Claude to create the directory. I CD'd into the directory. I told Claude that I wanted um, um, to create this Udemy project, and I wanted to create a skill. Basically, what it did is it went and created this Claude commands and put my skill in there, and it's create course frequently asked questions. Okay, so the goal of this skill was to point to a URL, or let's say a table of contents, and generate course questions. That was the goal. And so what I did was I told Claude that, and I told it was a Bedrock full course. I told it to create environment file, which I'm not using at the moment, and I have this Bedrock sections, which basically created the sections of Bedrock course. And so, just to give you an idea of what I did was, I pointed to my console, which had the Bedrock section for the site area. And basically, what I did was I told Claude to look at this console and generate a table of contents for all the sections in this course. And that's where this Bedrock sections come in. To be quite honest with you, I don't know uh, whether it scraped the web and created the sections, or whether it looked at my URL and created the sections. But we'll take a close look at that. So the first thing I really did was created this Claude file, and basically this file provides the guidance for Claude code when working with code in this repository. It specializes in generating skills to create questions and answers for courses by section of each course. Now, it did generate the questions, it did generate the answers. Okay, so it didn't generate incorrect answers, so I had to do a little bit of work. But just to show you what this did do, the URL of the AWS console can point to the function, I'm going to say sections, of the service. For example, the AWS Bedrock course can be based on the URL of the Bedrock console. We will have skills for generating questions and answers for each section, and put the questions and answers in the Udemy course specified. Now, like I said, I feel like it was some sort of hybrid when I first did this. Maybe I didn't really do it correctly. So it generated a bunch of questions. I updated the skill, because you could always scrape websites and get course questions and answers, anything related to Bedrock. But what I wanted to do is generate the site area sections, because I'm training on these sections and I want the questions and answers. So that was the purpose of this. I'm creating a Udemy course, covering some things in Python for a Bedrock course, etc. So I could probably improve this, because it really is a course on Bedrock, not necessarily Claude. But I am going to have Claude videos in there, which I don't want to worry about right now. So the structure, the content is organized into numbered section folders. Each section contains lesson code for that part of the course, which typically corresponds to the quiz. All these typos are pretty much understood. But and I told Claude all this by chatting to it. I didn't use any voice. I just was chatting to it and telling it what I wanted to do. And I told Claude to update this file according to my requirements. Now, it did ask me whether I wanted a single Python virtual environment that lives in a repo. I said that it's a good idea. Maybe I'll need it. And it generated an environment example for my sample template for my secrets or whatever. And I don't see the regular .env file created, but it's telling me what to do here. And so I have to execute this command. And it generated some environmental variables, which I really, at the moment, I don't know what I'm using. I don't think I'm using AWS or the region or the bearer token or any of this stuff, but I will very soon. Now, run the individual lesson scripts. It created this it's going to create this Python code called lesson.py. Each course is dedicated. It has a course slug sections area. So notice there's an AWS Bedrock sections. If you look at the full course, there's a question and answer file that's created, but it looks like it's pointing to this sections file. So this file was automatically created. Now I did give it this console, which is not necessarily good practice, but since I was logged in and since my credentials are on my Mac, I said, really, here's where the say area is. But it looked at all the docs and the API references, and it might have used a little too much, but then it started describing the different sections. Now Bedrock Studio is sort of deprecated; it's really fused into the project, so that was an issue. I should remove this. But the playgrounds and all the other stuff. The questions were there. The questions were good. So I use the questions as appropriately as I can. So this was the file that was I could really define and upgrade and make sure it has the proper stuff in it. So getting back to my instructions, here's the section file. Now I could add another course here just so you know. SageMaker or something, and it would generate. I could generate the sections and generate the course question and answers. This is the primary course URL. This is documentation and reference. And I really wanted to point to this, and I wanted it to work exclusively on this course URL, but it didn't, and but it generated very good questions and answers. Course folder, blah blah blah. Let's see what it generated for course folders. Yeah, so it generated different sections for the course folders, but it didn't generate all the it generated a lot of sections and subsections. So I had to settle for whatever it gave me. I could have refined my skill, which I plan on doing, and refining it more. But right now, I wanted to update my Udemy project that I was publishing. So basically, it was this Amazon Bedrock sections that it was using, and let's see, the full course was the full course output is where it generated the folders. If I look at one section like labs, they're question and answers, and so we'll take a look at those in a minute. anyway, like I said, it's not perfect, but it generated what I needed. Um, so now this shows me the full course here, what it's doing. Like I said, I want to tell Claude how I want to change this. I don't necessarily want to go in and change any of these files. I just tell Claude, go update the Claude.md file and tell it to do this. So there are some sections here I wanted to see, but I didn't see them. But the question and answers are all somewhere. Um, so basically, that's that. Question and answer generation. Each section's questions is produced by the course frequently asked questions skill and written to course root output section path question answers. So this is what I told Claude to do. Now, let's go look to see what it did. Foundation models. Like I said, I didn't really like the order of this, but it did generate questions and answers. So if you look at one of these, what model architectures are supported for import, it gives you the answer. And I told it 3 is the question and 3A is the answer. But this was getting in the way a bit. I should have just put the answer right underneath this question. But it's all good. So the question, it generated about 10 questions per section, which is okay. And the only problem I noticed, well, the questions and answers were great. The only problems I noticed was there were some tweaks that I had to do to make, well, let's put it this way. I think the only major problem was Bedrock Studio isn't available. So it's fused into Bedrock now. So when you go to look at Bedrock and you navigate to Studio, you can't navigate there the way maybe the answer told you to. But other than that, everything else looked pretty concrete. So the bottom line is, when I ran this skill, it generated all the question and answers. And I used these question and answers to update my Udemy project. Now, I just felt like it was very good seeing these question and answers. All of them were important. There's no doubt the question and answers were critically important. So that was a good thing. The skill needs to be updated though. I could go and try to create another course and see how that works. But I don't need to do that right now. I need to finish my Bedrock course. So all the questions and answers are in my Bedrock course. I'm going to do Agent Core next, and the skill will get updated to do what I need to do. So let's see if there's anything here that needs to be addressed. Okay. Now, what I wasn't too crazy about is it scraped the whole. Instead, it scraped the whole Bedrock categories from the web and generated questions and answers. When I really wanted to look at the course, in particular the course. So I might have to change that eventually, because when I'm going to publish this skill, I'm going to modify it, and basically what I want to do is, let's suppose I were to do this. basically what I want to do is now I'm in this Udemy project. Here, let me see. I'm trying to figure out whether it still understands where where I'm at. I don't know if it created a new session. I think it created a new session at this point. But I'm gonna tell it. Okay, so I'm in this directory, and I got my Claude MD file, and okay, so I'm gonna just tell it to do something. Move env dot sample to en to official.env file using the sample. Let's just see what happens here. Now I do this I do this for a reason, because I want Claude, I'm using a session now. I'm going to start telling Claude to do certain things. So let's just see. What I'm finding out is I stay in Claude and tell it what to do when I could go here and do whatever I want to do with this project, but I want Claude to do it for me, and I want to let's just see what was generated here. So this is let's see. Yeah, so this is a dummy data, so I have to fix this. Right now I don't need it because I'm not using AWS, and I'm not using Udemy. I'm not using any external systems except public directories. So let's go back to just recap. Notice I have trouble deleting here because Claude is protecting my directories. So let me go here and say I just wanted to delete this file. It turns out that when Claude works in a folder, it's protecting some of the resources, and there's a permissions file that you initially create, and that could help you. Right now I'm not ready to use it for all the folders, but when I do, I'll make it a little bit more global. But let me just tell it what to do and approve it. Okay, so that's fine. So I did that. Okay, now, so I don't think I'm going to do anything else in here. What I'll do is I'll come back and modify the skill so it's really official. I don't, at the moment, there are some changes I do want to make. So let's quickly look. Let's quickly look at what I have here in this core skill. Let me just go back to, this is docs URL console nav path. Docs URL console. So I'm looking for the console. Let me just see what this looks like. This is like instructions for the console path. Also, I have this 2 or 3 sentences here. I do want to make it shorter. but there's information there that's really good for learning. So I'll leave it in there for now. Okay, so let me see where I put. Let me see where I put. Let me see what's in here. I'm looking for my console URL. See, this is interesting because one file is calling it a console URL, and another one's this is just calling it URL. So let's see, console discover modeling, console labs, console chat, console infer. So this looks like it's documenting the console, what it's getting out of my console. I mean, you have to be logged in to get that, but that's exactly what I want to do. So my skill on my desktop is doing that. Someone else who uses this we'll have to make sure that that's correct. Now I'm just thinking about this because my credentials, there's multiple profiles in my credential file, right? So I have let's say a testing environment account, Amazon account, and I have a production account. So usually I'm pointing to the production account, but for this exercise, I'm just getting the site area sections of the Bedrock console. So that's the same in both environments. So I just noticed this, but it is something to be conscious for, because let me see let me see if that makes sense. So I'm in the console in the west region, and my account is not listed here. So it's probably going to my credential file and getting my default credential. So just be aware of that. Here it doesn't really matter. All I wanted to do was get the Bedrock console. And like I said, it might not be good practice to put a console URL here where you have to be authenticated to actually go read it, for Claude to go read it. Now I don't know if Claude needed the credentials or else I was logged in. So that's another question. So this is what goes back to making sure Claude points to my profile, let's say production, and it has uses credentials for my desktop with that particular West Coast production account, Amazon production account credential. Okay, so I just want to point that out. If I was deploying Agent Core or something in an environment, that would be critically important. Here it wasn't. So let's keep that in mind, and this is why I made sure the environment had the proper credentials. So here this is the faulting to the region. Is Claude using it? I don't think so, because I fed it that URL. So this now another thing, just so you know, I'm filling this out for each project because I want to be a little bit safe right now. But in reality, I could be defaulting to this globally for all my folders. And I don't have co-work on this Mac. The operating system's not accessible. So I'm using Claude Code. And I just want to point that out, that I made sure that this was official so I could point to credentials and Tropic keys just in case I need what I need. And right now, I don't think I need this at all. So, so that, that's really all I wanted to discuss with this course. And basically, it was creating this skill. Which I just did by chatting to Claude. Create a skill called Create Course FAQ. This is what I want. This is what I need. Now I do want to take a look at this a lot more closely because I just kind of finished this and it worked for me. It gave me what I needed, but I'm not really telling it to use. I'm telling it to use that one URL, console URL, but I'm not telling it to use anything else except what Claude sort of thought I should be using. So it did fetch documentation, everything that was available without credentials. And I just focused on what I want to produce. So let's see. Like I said, there were some things that went wrong here. Some of the documentation that I didn't really want to point to did mention Bedrock Studio. There's no concept of Bedrock Studio anymore in the console. It looks like there's some testing sections. And anything else? Yeah, I think I got to be careful with some of this stuff because some of this documentation is a little dated. So it told the user what it could do, and it wasn't very accurate. It wasn't completely accurate anymore. So there was some dated stuff that showed up, but very little. And other than that, it seemed to work quickly. And I scraped my question and answers and put it in Udemy. So just to show you one more time, here's my full course. Here's my tuning section. There were different fine-tuning question and answers. Tuning, distillation, evaluation. So if I go into distillation, there's question and answers. So now I look at those question and answers, there's 10 of them. And so, obviously I wanted to automatically populate these, but I didn't think, I was going to be selective. But all the questions look so good that I liked them. And this particular one, the first question, it said, choose tune. Well, that was correct. There was a tune section there, but not all of them. The site area names have changed a little bit, so I had to change some things. But everything else was accurate technically. So very, very good to read the question and answers. You learn a lot from this, and that's all I really wanted to show you now. Maybe I could show you where was I? Where's my Udemy? I'll show you my question and answers if I can do that real quick. Steve's back, instructor. So here's my Bedrock course. Now if I go to curriculum, what you'll see is I had a quiz just on discovery, some simple questions and answers. Um, and then I have a quiz on API keys and stuff like that. So the bottom line is my recommendation is create a separate section for quizzes. And I eventually started doing that, but you live and learn. So here, here's like quick flows, and I have question and answers pertaining to flows. So if you look at these things, what you'll see is the question and the answer that Claude gave me back and generated, and I picked the one that was correct, and I maybe modified, gave an incorrect answer here. But I think both of these, yeah, I think this was correct, but some of these sections were dated a little bit and I had to change them. So this is incorrect. Even with the guardrails, you'll see I have a bunch of questions. Now I thought it gave me more questions and answers than I needed, and when I before I published this course, I might rearrange and remove. But there were some good questions and answers, and I could add some more, much more better questions and answers. But I had to start somewhere. So very good question and answers, but like I said, you got to be careful. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show for this particular Claude demo. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next skill generation.